Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, as always, I love to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, and peace and blessings to all the brothers out there that's watching, listening, and learning. All right, so as you can see on the screen, this is a post from Instagram, which I thought was kind of funny. And it says, this is funny, which is going to lead me into the video. It says, when you ask a brew or Hebrew who believes sex isn't marriage, to show you in the law how it's not. And and then the law. So you got Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, and Tobit, which is funny. Yeah, which is funny. And then the caption says, y'all gotta stop that. Tobit is not the law. Yeah, which is true. Yeah, which is indeed true. And which leads to the title of the video. Israelites have to stop conflicting the law. Let me see. Israelites have to stop conflicting the law and scriptural advice. No, not scriptural advice, but advice that comes from history, historical texts and epistles. There's going to be something to that nature. All right, because you have different classifications of of books that we have in the Bible, which Exodus through Deuteronomy would be Ha Tha Wara, which is the law, right? And then you have the books of wisdom like Proverbs, Sirach, Ecclesiastes. And you have the prophets, which obviously that would be Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Baruch. And then you have the Gospels, which is Yahweh Shai. And then you have the epistles, right? You have the epistles that comes from Paul, the epistles are just letters that was written to different churches, Peter, James, etc. Right? So, um, we have to understand that. Let me go ahead and grab this. We have to understand that um, the law the law is mandatory. All right, whatever comes out of the law, or whatever comes from the Mosaic or Levitical law, that's mandatory to follow. Let me go ahead and read this. This is Matthew 4:4, and this is what Yahweh Shai said, and also what comes from Yahweh Shai as well, because Yahweh Shai is law, pursuant to Deuteronomy 18. And the Most High said, I'm gonna get that next. Matthew 4:4 says, but he answered and said, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of the Heavenly Father. That's what we that's what we live by. We live by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of the Heavenly Father. Right? And not everything that we read in the Bible came out of the mouth of the Most High directly. All right, not everything that we read in the Bible comes out of the Most High directly, which I'm going to go ahead and prove that. Which I don't know why that's such a controversial topic, you know, because it really shouldn't be. It's plain, and I'm going to give a few examples of that. Right now, let me go ahead and grab this real quick. This is chapter 18, Deuteronomy chapter 18 and verse 15. This is dealing with Hamashiach, or Salak, verse 18. It says, I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren, like unto thee, and will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak unto them all that I shall command him. Who is this dealing with? Yahweh Shai. All right. So let's go here. I wanted to bring this point in the book of Tobit, because this is what I've seen people arguing over. And this is what people argue over a lot. This is what people argue a lot, dealing with the marriage license, right? So this is Tobit 7:14. It says, and called Edna his wife, and took paper and write an instrument of covenants and sealed it. So people would take this and say, you need a marriage license. But guess what? This is something that this is something that I believe the brother name is Raguel. Yeah, Raguel, which was the uncle of I always get the names mixed up. Tobias. Okay, Tobias. Tobias is the son. Tobit is the father. I always get it mixed up. Matter of fact, let me jump up. Let me jump up to verse 11. It says, I have given my daughter in marriage to 7 men who died that night. They came in unto her. Nevertheless, for the present, be merry. But Tobias said, I will eat nothing here till we agree and swear one to another. Raguel said, then take her from henceforth according to the manner, for thou art her cousin. Yeah, they were cousins. And she is thine, and the merciful power give you good success in all things. Then he called his daughter Sarah, and she came to her father, and he took her by the hand and gave her to be to be wife. So like it says, and gave her to be wife to Tobias, saying, behold, take her after the law of Moses, and lead her away to thy father. And he blessed them. Verse 14, and called Edna his wife, and took paper, and did write an instrument of covenants, and sealed it. All right, so this is where people say, all right, boom. This shows that you need a marriage license. That's what completes marriage, according to a lot of people. Like for example, IUIC. IUIC teach that you need to walk down to you need to go downtown and you need to go ahead and get yourself a marriage license, which that's not required in our law. All right, that's not required in the law. That didn't come out of the mouth of the Most High. All right, that's something that Tobit, Tobias, and his uncle and his wife and his daughter. That's what they wanted to do. All right, they wanted to do that. They wanted a paper covenant, but that is not required in our law. All right, this would be something called a custom or a tradition. All right, which traditions, customs, even advice are those are things that are not necessarily that you have to follow. All right, that's not mandatory. All right, that is not mandatory. If it didn't come out of the law or the prophets, or if it didn't come from Yahweh Shai, or that really isn't mandatory for you to follow. For example, an advice, which advice when you look it up, it says opinion, or which a lot of times when you read Paul's epistles, right? A lot of times Paul is stating his own opinion. Like for example, Paul says that I wish that every man would be like me. And what does that mean? Not matter of fact, let me just go ahead and grab it. I wish everyone was like me. All right, let's go ahead and grab that. Yep, First Corinthians 7 and verse 7. All right, First Corinthians 7 verse 7. It says, for I would that all men were even as I myself, which means what? Unmarried. But every man hath his proper gift of the Most High, one after this manner and another after that. So Paul, he's saying like, look, I would that all you guys were like me. Now according to a lot of Israelites, right? According to a lot of Israelites, if the whole Bible was just law, that means that we would have to follow this. But we know that this is Paul's own advice. This is his own opinion. This is his own thing. All right, that's what he wanted. But according to the laws of the Most High, I can have a wife if I want. I can have a wife if I want. Right? You read in the same chapter, it says the time is short. They that have wives do it be as though they have none. And brothers pull that scripture to try to tell brothers. not to get married, right? Hey, but guess what? If a brother wants to get married, that's his own prerogative. If he wants to do that or not, all right, that's his own prerogative. If that brother wants to get married or not, why is that? Because according to what came out of the mouth of the Heavenly Father, we're allowed to have a woman. Now, I'm not saying that this is bad advice. This is sound. This is sound advice. This is great. This is great advice. But is it mandatory to follow? No, it's not mandatory to follow. All right, what's mandatory to follow is what came out of the mouth of the Most High. All right. So yeah. So when you read, so going back to Tobit, or when you read in our law, the only thing concerning marriage written down on paper you will see in the Levitical uh, Deuteronomy Deuteronomy law is the bill of divorce. All right, that's what you will see that's required when you put away a woman, a bill of divorce. Now that gets put on paper, or that gets put on ink. But as far as a marriage license, that's not in our law. That's not in our custom. And who knows? We may have we may have even adopted that from somebody, right? Because there's nowhere in the Torah where you're going to read about a marriage license. That maybe not even that probably is not even our own custom, because when Israel go through captivities, our people pick up the different customs of the nations, different cultural customs or traditions of the other nations, and try to implement it implement it within our own customs. That's just what our people do. Our people are, so naive and don't want to stick to their own culture, right? Hey, but who knows? Or who knows if that was even originally a part of our custom, right? But like I said, when you read Genesis through Deuteronomy, you don't see anything about a marriage license or a covenant of papers until you come to Tobit, right? Showing you that this is just a thing that they were doing. So you can't push and force that on everybody. Right? That's optional. Okay? If a man doesn't want to have no marriage papers, then a man doesn't have to get no marriage papers. Okay? What sealed the deal according to marriage, as far as marriage goes, is sex. Okay? That's what seals the deal, sex. Right? Just like our forefather, Isaac, right? He went inside his he went inside his mother's tent, pursuant to Genesis. Let's go ahead and grab that. This is Genesis chapter 24 and verse 67. It says, "And Isaac brought her, Rebekah, into his mother Sarah's tent, and took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. And Isaac was comforted after his mother's death." You see that? And this is Jake, right? Bring it back to mom house, and he laid down with her, and she became his wife. Nothing here that says that they had a marriage license or even a wedding for that matter. And of that's why Joseph and Mary was afraid. Okay, because they skipped that tradition, they skipped that custom of having a whole marriage ceremony and living together, because that's what it means when it says before they came together, meaning them living in the same house, them cohabiting in the same house. So it would have been looking like they were shacking up, so to speak, right? Which there is no such thing as shacking up. Hey, the old school parents, you shacking up, you shacking up. Hey, listen, if you lay down with the woman, all right, that's your wife, plain and simple. All right, ain't no such thing as shacking up. You don't gotta have no marriage ceremony. You don't gotta have no marriage license, no marriage papers. Now, is that cool? Yeah, that's cool. All right, but that's not mandatory. Why is that? Because that's not written in our law. Now, if it was written in our law for us, thou shalt have, marriage license and etc., then yeah. Hey, but if it's not in there, then you Israelites got to stop pushing that. All right, you Israelites have to stop pushing that. That is not mandatory to follow. All right, that is a custom. All right, that is a tradition. Which custom, traditions, different advices is not mandatory to follow. What's mandatory to follow is what comes out of the mouth of the Most High. All right, that's what's mandatory to follow. All right, and I have another example since I'm here in the book of Tobit, which a lot of Israelites love to pull this for for brothers that may want to deal with a heathen woman, right? Tobit 4:12 it says before beware all of matter of fact, let's go ahead and view the chapter. All right, let's go ahead and view the chapter. And let's start for context sake. So this is Tobit 4, and I'm gonna start at verse 1. It says, in that day Tobit remembered the money which he had committed to Gabael and Rages of Media, and said with himself, I have wished for death, wherefore do I not call for my son Tobias, that I may signify to him of the money before I die? And when he had called him, he said, My son, when I am dead, bury me, and despise not thy mother, but honor her all the days of thy life, and do that which shall please her, and grieve her not. So this is a conversation between a father and a son. This is a conversation between a father and a son, right? So now let's jump down to verse 12 because I just read that for context. Tobias and Tobit is having a personal conversation. So let's go down to verse 12. Beware of all whoredom, my son, and chiefly take a wife of the seed of thy fathers, and take not a strange woman to wife, which is not of thy father's tribe. For we all, for we are the children of the prophets, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Remember, my son, that our fathers from the beginning, even that they all married wives of their own kindred, and were blessed in their children, and their seed shall inherit the land. And people say, see, you gotta see, brother, you can't marry no Moabite woman, brother. You can't marry no Edomite woman, brother. Hold on. According to what the Most High said, I can do that. I don't gotta follow what Tobit said to his son. Now, don't get me wrong. You reading this chapter, this is great. This is great advice. All right, right? He was putting his son on game. He was putting his son on game, and that's a fact. But this was advice that Tobit was given to his son, which means that this doesn't apply to any of us unless you're Tobit. I mean, unless you're Tobias. Unless you're Tobias, verse 12 is not mandatory for you to follow. Verse 12 is not mandatory for you to follow if you're not Tobias. This was Tobit giving his son commandments, not us. So you're pulling this to say that if a brother can't sleep with a heathen woman, which is totally off because when we read in our law, which when you read in our law, let's go ahead and grab this real fast. It says what? Deuteronomy 4 and verse 2. It says, Ye shall not add unto the word which I command you, neither shall ye diminish off from it, that ye may keep the commandments of Yahweh your power, which I command you. Right? And see that Israel urged to obey God's law. So this is dealing with the Mosaic law, as people call it. So you're not supposed to add unto it or take away, right? Because when you read in our law, when you read in the book of Deuteronomy, the same book, it tells you if you go to war against another nation and you see a beautiful woman of the other nation and you desire to have her, or you can go ahead and take her and she can be your wife. That's what it says. That's in our law. That's in our law. And we know that the Heavenly Father, he's not gonna contradict himself. Or look, you can have a heathen woman here, but when you fast forward to Tobit, we can't. That doesn't make any sense. All right, this was what Tobiah this is what Tobit wanted for his son. So you can't you can't force that upon anybody. All right, this is not mandatory for us to follow. Again, to reiterate, this was what Tobit advised for his son Tobias. All right, this doesn't apply. This doesn't apply to us. Plain and simple. Yeah. So um, and in the same logic that I applied to this, that also has to be applied with other scriptural, not scriptural, but historical and an epistle advice that you may come across. All right, because like I said, that even goes the same logic, like I had brought out, the same logic even applies to what some of what Paul says sometimes. In fact, let me go ahead and grab this real fast. This command not the Lord. KJV. Yeah, see that? So First Corinthians 7. Oh, look at this. Oh yeah, matter of fact, I should have had started up in First Corinthians the seventh chapter. Yep. First Corinthians 7 and verse 6, it says, watch this, but I speak this by permission and not of commandment. For I would that all men were even as myself, but every man had this proper gift of the Most High, and one after this manner, and another after that. I say therefore to the unmarried and widows, it is good for them if they abide even as I. So Paul, by permission, he says, not by and not of commandment, which is important. Which is important because some men will read this and say, "See, you would try to push this. You would try to push this as law. Hey, but this isn't law. This is this is advice that he's speaking by permission, not of commandment." All right, because we see we see instances in the scriptures where a woman is widowed, she can get remarried. She can get remarried because out of the same mouth of the same brother Paul, Romans 7, Romans 7 and verse 2, it says, for the woman which hath an husband is bound by the law to her husband so long as he liveth. But if the husband be dead, she is loosed from the law of her husband. See that? So when a man dies, and a woman is loose, right? Just like what happened with King David and Nabal. Just like what happened with King David and Nabal. What happened? Nabal, he died. Abigail, she was a widow for a split second. David took her to be his wife. You see what I'm saying? So if we were following a lot of Israelites' logic and with the whole argument of you know everything that Paul says we have to follow, that means that what David did was wrong. What David did then was wrong. All right, this is just strictly advice. Which again, I'm not shitting on the advice or anything like that. Hey, hey, look, that's some solid advice, right? So that you can be solely focused on the ministry, etc. Hey, but it's in our nature to want to marry, right? It's in our nature, to want to have sex, right? Especially being here in this over sexualized society. Remember, man, Paul, when he wrote this was 2,000 years ago. For sex, prostitution and things like that was always being propagated, but not to this extent. You hop on as soon as you hop on social media. Are you seeing, hey man, you seeing asses out, all all types of shit. You walk outside, all right, the woman is walking naked, damn near. So trying to apply this to now, And that's hard. Hey, that's why you have a lot of brothers that's so bitter, right? Because it tells you that in the book of Sirach, he that don't have a woman will be walking up and down sorrowful. All right. So watch, peep, verse 9. It says, but if they cannot contain, meaning, man, if they can't, and they can hold it in, they just, hey, look, they're horny. They gotta let it out. All right, the man and the woman, because woman has needs too. Although they try to pretend, but they have needs too. All right, it says, but if they cannot, but if they cannot contain, let them marry. For it is better to marry than to burn. Hey, yeah, man, they can contain, man. Just let them go ahead and marry. Go ahead and marry. So why did Paul say that? Because it's not wrong to be married. But that was just his advice because he's looking at it through his lens. Like, look, man, I'm not married. I don't have no attachments. Man, I can just I can just solely focus on serving the Lord. Hey, look, life is good for me. But he knew that he couldn't like enforce that on people because all things are not for all men, as it says in the book of Sirach. All right. So again, Israelites have to stop conflicting what's mandatory in our law to follow and textual advice. All right, so hopefully this was edifying. All praise, honor, glory to Yahweh Shai. Shalom.